Let's give them a hand as they grab their chairs. There you go.
Yeah, so formal.
I know.
It's great.
How about you guys introduce yourself?
I'm Roman Wyden. I'm the co-writer, executive producer, and director of Max.
Dan Johnson, co-writer.
Elizabeth Collins is the producer.
I'm Kelly Lerner, the casting director.
So, as we know, it takes a village and an army to make a film happen. So is there anybody in the audience, cast or crew-wise, you want to acknowledge? Did you
Yes,
see anyone?
Guy Camilleri's back there. He played the car salesman. And I haven't, if anyone else that I'm not seeing,
Raise a hand if there's...
I think that's it. Yay.
Yay.
Years later. But yeah, really, thank you, Guy. Always an inspiration.
So for those in the audience that don't know, we do these for actors who are looking to create their own work, to hear from people who've done it and get inspiration and information. So as with anything, it starts with story and script. That's you got to start there. So can you talk about the story, how that kind of came to be, how you guys got to the script phase, all that?
I'll start. So there was this story I had heard about this kid who robbed or tried to rob a gentleman in an alley, and then the guy turned around and said, well, you look cold, here's my jacket. And he ends up like helping him, and they go to lunch, and the guy pays for his, no, he took his wallet, and then they go to lunch, and then the guy tells him, well, you're going to have to pay, you got my wallet. So it was kind of a cute story in the news, and I was like, I liked that sort of change of heart and that redemption and the kind of, like, what am I doing here? You know, like, why don't I just make a difference now? And then I think we just, and then my car got keyed twice in a row. My wife was pregnant, and, you know, you're like, God damn it, you know, like, who is this person? And that's how it started. And I went to Dan, and I said, I have this idea for a script, and we should work together. We had never written together. We'd worked with Dan commercially. I have a production company. We do commercials and stuff. And, yeah, so then I came to you with this idea, and we, I guess, sat down for a few
Then
times.
we got together. Roman, show him your inner arm. Show him the tattoo you have on your left arm.
This one?
Yeah, it says
Good.
good if you can't see it out there in the audience of the
Is
internet.
that related to?
Yeah,
It is?
Roman pointed that tattoo, and I think you just gotten it and said, you know, you want to do something good, which I think is conveyed in the story. Roman and I approach things from a very different perspective. Your wife had just had a child. You were working in downtown, but that's your cell phone.
There's a little guy. I have a little guy in my pocket. It's a little ghost, but I'm not sure it doesn't.
He was working in downtown where I live, and then you were living up in Atwater, in a nice place that you can actually see in the film, which was a little bit different from where I was at in life. I had just been cheated on. I grew up in Virginia as a military brat. Concurrent with the cheating, about 5 months earlier, I had broken my hand in a one-sided fight with a steel newsstand. So the way we interacted with violence and retribution were a little coming from two different places, and I think the story comes from that. Is we were trying to establish in the characters this sort of continuum of rage, that if it isn't necessarily linear in the narrative, it's sort of this overwhelming atmosphere that there are people in this city who are confronting the city in a way that forces them to either act out or sublimate anger and rage, and vitriol that I think we all have. If you were with me on the 10 freeway today, you definitely have it. And from there, we sort of cobbled together this narrative of hypotheticals that I think sort of balances Roman and I's perspective of what were the possibilities of feasibly working out a scenario like getting your car keyed, and how that would play out.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, Dan came from his point of view, I came from my point of view, and I think we rubbed up against each other a couple times where Dan was like, that's it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not there yet. He's like, okay. And then vice versa. But it was great because if not, we would have just each gone into our direction, and the collaboration, I think, really brought something out of us. And, you know, I don't like looking at older work. Anything last week is older. But, you know, and I think looking back now, just that alone was worth it to sort of have that come out and see how it ended up on screen. So.
And then how did you guys write together? Was it you wrote some email back and forth? You guys sit down together and physically write? Kind of what was your guys' process of hammering
We would
that
sit
out?
down together, I think mostly at my place. Yeah. We would toss around ideas and listen to music and read a couple books together. Ate some crackers, yeah. there's a beer or two involved at one point or another, and then we would come together, sort of come and agree on an outline, and then work from there and piece it together.
How long was the process kind of from story to connection to kind of like shooting script or final lockdown script?
I have short-term memory. I'm not kidding. I don't remember anything. I think does anyone remember? Was it like maybe 6 months, 7 months?
I think it was like
8 months? 6 to 9 months? Yeah.
And
Something
then
like that.
that's a perfect segue, Elizabeth. When did you kind of get into that process? Was it during them still writing? Did you guys? What was your guys' relationship, or were they done and you're ready to start pre-production?
From what I recall, and my memory fades me also, but I believe that you already had the script finalized once we had spoke. And the same as Roman was saying earlier, we worked together commercially. And he had come to me and said, we're really looking for somebody to produce this with us. And if you ever work in the commercial world, there's times when nothing has like heart to it. So it was really nice at the moment to get my hands on something that was a story that they were really telling, in a heartfelt way, and not just about, driving a product towards us, which, don't get me wrong, commercials are great and you do some really awesome stuff there too. But, and you had already started the Kickstarter campaign when we had spoke. So I think we were maybe like 6-8 weeks out before we started. But we started, prepping as soon as we could because we knew we would be working in, not with unlimited funds, which no one ever has. So we started getting, people involved as early as we can and to find the right locations and do the right, the legwork as early as we could at that point.
Talk a little about Kickstarter. Was this your first time you used Kickstarter and the kind of crowdfunding? How was that for you?
Yeah,
things you learned or could
I
pass
used
on?
Kickstarter, and as some of you probably know, or a lot of you know, it's a lot of work. I don't think I'm going to go there again anytime soon, because I think we raised like $12,000, which was nice, but it ended up costing me probably in the end $45,000 to do this right, and I wanted to do this right. I wanted to go SAG, and I wanted to have everything be done by the book. That was part of my deal, was I want to do a short film because I couldn't afford a feature, but I want to do something that looks good, that feels like a production value that you would see on TV. That was my goal. Kickstarter helped, but it was, I would say, if I had to put it in numbers, we got $12,000, but I probably ended up spending $8,000 in the amount of work and shooting a video and keeping it up, and maybe less, but so I'm not going to go there anytime soon, but it's definitely a valuable platform, especially for lower budget stuff. Definitely, yeah.
And then obviously it sounded like you guys have worked together, Elizabeth and Roman, in the commercial world. Is that how you found the rest of your department heads, your crew, was kind of just asking the favors that way?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, a lot of people we had worked with that came out and helped us out. And, I have to praise Roman on the fact that when it came down to budget, he wanted to make sure everyone was taken care of. I mean, a lot of people gave their time and favors, but you never wanted to skimp on what needed to be taken care of. So we had a great crew, we had great people, and some of them were from already existing relationships, and others were new relationships that we found that other people brought into us. So it's always a great opportunity to meet new people in those situations.
And then how did casting get in this process? I'm curious, like, how far into because sometimes it's early in pre-production you start casting because that's part of Kickstarter and that kind of thing. Sometimes it's late. So kind of on this project, where was casting kind of in that pre-production phase, and how did you guys meet and that kind of story?
Admittedly, I don't know at what point Roman was at, but I had worked with Roman on previous projects, so we had a great relationship. And so when he asked me to cast this film, I was, of course, more than happy to do it. Did I answer your question?
You did, and he can
And she
probably
also has
finish it.
short-term memory because she told me at lunch.
Totally.
That's why we love each other.
Totally.
All of us, except you, Dan.
I don't remember shit.
So we're on set. And what scene is next? I don't know.
What are we doing here?
I don't know. So I think it was because in the Kickstarter campaign we had already Spencer's name in there, and Claudia.
Oh, really?
So I think it was sort of in the also.
So just for everyone's benefit, so Spencer, who played Max, Spencer Daniels, he, as we talk about raising money, he has some name value. He was the young Brad Pitt in Curious Case of Benjamin Button. There were actors in there that maybe you might have recognized, might not, but had some name value. And that is a way to help raise money. So that makes sense then
Yeah.
that you would have had
Exactly, that was the plan.
attached Spencer. Spencer had done worked on a feature film that I had cast. And so I had a great relationship with his manager along with Spencer. And that things like that help propel financing. I'm not saying that's, and it's certainly not the best way to do it. But
No,
it's,
but you're right. I mean, it is, we had Claudia Wells, who played his mom, which is a very small part, but she was the girlfriend of Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future, the first one. And I just reached out to her on Facebook, and, so I kind of tried to do my best. I didn't know that many name actors and, sort of tried to get some people in there. Carlos Leal is a Swiss actor, very well known. I'm from Switzerland, so that was kind of like a, hey, let's work together. And he had a little bit of, as a cloud in Europe. And then Kelly had mentioned Spencer, and I was like, I looked at the photo, and I was like, yeah, I want someone kind of emo and kind of, but then he came in.
You wanted like an Eminem kind of guy, right?
Yeah, kind of a little
That
bit like
was-
street, more street, but I'm glad
Yeah.
that didn't work out because he was busy.
Exactly.
Eminem was doing the Chrysler
He
thing.
was busy.
And he
was a
didn't return my
little
call.
for the role.
But no, but the he came in and it was like one line, and I was like, who the F
Well,
is
we
this
had a
kid? Like,
conversation because, Roman was very specific with what he wanted, and I saw it in the script. I could see this character being this, like, privileged white kid trying to be all street. And so we had auditions, and we couldn't find anyone who could do it. And neither Roman or myself would settle for just okay. And I said, wait a second. I know this one guy. He is a phenomenal actor. And when you have a great actor, and so Spencer never got any kind of role like this. He had never received a role like this in the past. It wasn't something, so for him it was like, oh, this will be something interesting. Otherwise, I'm not sure we would have gotten him. But he was really intrigued by the role because he doesn't usually play street. So it was a good
that was a
lesson
great,
for us.
yeah, and that was a good lesson for me to listen to the casting director because in the past I'd always been like, I think he can do it. Yeah, he can do it. And I sort of got rid of that in my vocabulary. It's like, I know he can do it because it's on the tape. If it's not on the tape, forget it. I'm not going to go there. And that was thanks to Kelly. So.
And I have another thing to confess that Roman doesn't know about.
Go on.
Our lead actress, Ericka Kreutz. She,
right.
Yes. Ericka, I had sent Roman a list of actors that, who would you like me to bring in of this group? He selected some people. Ericka initially wasn't selected. She did not fit the description other than being pregnant. She didn't. And I decided to bring her in anyhow because back in the day when I was casting in New York, I had booked her on a small pharmaceutical project. So I figured, people, you develop relationships, you network, and I end up bringing people in. And I thought, I'll bring her in. It won't hurt to have one additional person. And again, she did not fit the initial character description at all. She came in and he fell in love with her. And she did
Same
a
reason,
phenomenal
I
job.
really learned a lot during that, thanks to Kelly, and just really not like paying attention to stereotype, and that was a big lesson, or perception. Oh, she looks like a mom. She looks kind of like she would go with this guy. And Ericka just walked in, same thing. It was like she didn't even speak yet. I was like, wow, like would have never thought, but like I'm in, And then she did that Allstate commercial, right?
Ye-
The one with the
Yep.
owl, and then driving the car.
Yeah.
Or is it Allstate? No, one of those.
She did, yeah.
And so now I see her face, and I'm like, man, she's amazing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Power of a casting director right there, people. That was great. You guys basically answered all my questions perfectly. So we're going to move on a little bit more to production stuff. Can you talk a little bit kind of behind the scenes stuff, like how many days did you shoot? You talked about little locations, like by your house, sounded like was one of them. Kind of talk about all that kind of laying out with locations-wise and days.
I'll start that part, and then Elizabeth can, because again, I don't remember everything. So I knew it was going to cost money, and so I knew we weren't going to rush it. Usually I shoot my films in a day, and we're done. Whatever I got, I got. And this was a 5-day shoot, or 5.5, or 4 or 5?
4, I think we did. It.
4?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were going to go 5. But
Running out
then.
of money.
Oh, right, yeah, that thing.
That extra day.
And so then obviously we had to get some location favors, and it was actually a funny story. The house with the red door was a house that my wife and I had looked at We were in the process of buying a house, and we almost bought it and didn't, but I just kept remembering that red door and the palm tree street in Echo Park, and I was like, man, I just drive by and ask them. And so I went by and we talked, and the new owner said, yeah, sure, no problem. The interior was our house, though. So other than that, I think really I just pretty much turned it over to Elizabeth, which was very smart because directing in itself is a lot of work. And I was just like, Elizabeth was so great. She was like, sometimes I would say like, yeah, how are we going to do it? She's like, just go away, just direct. And that was really great. I really appreciate you guarding me from production, because production is like a hammer and a nail coming at you 24/7, you know? Yeah. So thank you.
If I just may interject one thing.
Fine.
About Roman when I first met him. Roman is the kind of person who's like, yes, I can. I can do it. I don't care what anyone says. And so a perfect example of that is the location. Usually, I think the normal response is to be, they'll say no, that's uncomfortable, I don't walk on the door. Where he's like, yeah, absolutely, why not? And he brings that positive energy to everybody that he works with, or even a stranger at a house. And I think that's a really important, I think it's important to have that positive yes attitude, whether you're producing or directing and you want to jumpstart whatever it is you're doing, is to have that yes I can. He's that person, and I truly admire that.
Thank you. That was all Obama, but yeah, I can definitely take some of that. Thank you, though.
Yeah, I mean, Kelly's absolutely right in the sense of like so many more people will say yes if you just ask them. And especially with locations, like there's so many times when you're like, that would be awesome, but they'll never let me. And like, you just go knock on a door and a couple $100 goes a long way with some people. So it can really work. And especially if you're like, you're respectful and normal and like, you know, I mean, come off normal as much as you can in the beginning. Yeah, exactly. And you know, and you leave it in good shape when you exit the premises. I mean, that goes so far, and like, you know, offering people a meal goes so far. And that's kind of what we did, is like, you know, Roman would give me ideas of what kind of locations we were looking at. We just didn't have the money to hire a proper location scout. So we went and did it ourselves. You know, Roman went out himself. I think one of the actors went with you also, and you know, it was just like, these are the areas we like, and we would go knock on doors and be like, can we do this? And I don't think anyone told us no. I mean, we got lucky. And like I said, nothing cost us a ton in terms of locations. I mean, it was more so time. That was
Well, my son's not going to public school,
right,
not private school,
right.
so
Roman's
I'm
really
kidding.
feeling it more than anyone.
No, but I agree with Elizabeth that I think a lot of the thing. I'm now working as a producer, and so I don't no longer do the freebie. You know, hey, help me out for free, because you have to pay for gas and you have to eat. You know, so and I think we had this sort of same way of working of like, let's get people. Yeah, we don't pay the makeup artist $400, but $250 is nice. You know, we kind of just went about it the right way, and it's just a different energy. You're just not rushing. You know, it's funny. One of the questions said something about getting kicked out. I was like, Dennis, if we're going to do this right, we're going to have permits, right? So we really went that way. You know, it was like, I don't want to be there and worry if someone's going to kick us out. I'm just not into that anymore. I guess I'm getting too old of running fast, you know.
Which on the producing side is like so nice to hear from a director, because when you're producing, you're like, oh my God, they don't want to pull permits because of the money, and now I never know when this is going to explode. So it was like a nice peace of mind to have that we did it by the book, we did it properly, and it took time and money, but we didn't have to worry about those things.
And I think the worst case scenario, you don't pay people if you can't, but then you get permits, you divide that $750 by your amount of crew, and so you're paying everyone $70 anyway,
Yeah.
and you have a permit, you know.
Exactly.
Kind of have to balance the math.
Exactly.
Can you talk a little bit about the behind-the-scenes stuff? Was there a difficult shot or something that you, as maybe a director or as a producer, thought we were going to do it this way, but because of X and Y and Z, it turned out a different way?
The one thing that I remember distinctly is it was August and it was so hot. Like, it was just an exceptionally hot week. So it was hard on everybody. I mean, we had a lot of location moves every day, and it was like, it was just hot. That's the biggest thing I remember of like the struggle of, was just keeping everyone, you know, going in that sort of heat.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the answer is kind of no. Everything went super smooth. At least my experience. Again, Elizabeth was like, you direct, That's all you do. And I was like, yeah, but, no, but you know. So my experience was very smooth. Now, I had really great actors. We didn't do any rehearsals, really, because Carlos is a great actor. Spencer was amazing. Erica's great. You know, Claudia had a small role, and his dad had a small role, but I believed in them. And it was kind of like, just do it, you know. And they did it, and I was like, let's do it a little differently. And then they did it, and it was like, great. So my experience was very smooth. There was one shot we didn't end up using because the AD was like, was it Bonder, right?
Yeah.
He's like, do we have to do this again? Because you're probably not going to use it. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm the director, you know? And then we ended up not using it. And that shot member guy in the garage with the car, it was like 8 takes. I was like, I can do this. And so, again, it was the lesson of listen to your key people because they've done it over and over. If you hire good people, and they're not just thinking time, like he was thinking story, he was also going with us, tracking it, you know?
Yeah.
And that was really great. So I think if one of the lesson is like not hire the right people, that sounds very cliche, but don't just work with a friend because they're a friend and they're like, yo, I'll help you, you know? It's fun, but after a while, you really want that person to know what they're doing and really like, you know what, I'm busy and usually I get paid, but I'm going to help you out because there's passion, you know? I think I know I'm jumping all over the place, but that's what I do.
We usually wrap with kind of this little bit of nugget information, so we're going to start Kelly and work the way down. Kelly, for you, what do you need in a director to make your job the best it can be? If you're talking to maybe a first-time director out there, what do they need to know from a casting director to make your job work?
I think what I'm about to say is applicable not only to what I need from when you ask the question, what do you need from a first-time director? I think any person who, if you're going to get hired and you're in a job, you just want to feel like you're appreciated and treated with respect. That's really, really important. Doesn't matter what you do for a living. And Roman, for me, this was a pleasure working on this because he's passionate, a phenomenal leader, and could not stop showing his gratitude. And that just really encouraged me and made me want to work as hard as possible because I certainly didn't cast this project for the money. But when you have someone that you have a great relationship with that you respect, you'll do anything for them.
Thank you. Thank you. Elizabeth, for you, first-time producer, what would if you could give them 1 or 2 pieces of advice to send them home with, what would it be?
That's a good question. One that someone told me a long time ago that actually I've always applied, and don't take it the wrong way, but sometimes it's okay to ask for forgiveness before you ask for permission. And sometimes you have to take those risks as a producer because you might not be able to get what you need done, but you might be able to get forgiveness for what you just did. So occasionally, but like on the contrary to that is, you know, try as hard as you can to go by the book and do things as they are. And just being a producer, you're only as strong as the people that are around you. So as long as you have great people that are helping you and a great director, you're probably going to succeed even if you don't know what you're doing. Because they're all going to help you. Because it's impossible for you to know every job, but it is possible for them to teach you what you need to know. So I think those are my 2 big points that I go on every production with.
Same thing writing-wise. If someone's looking to write their first short film, what's some recommendations you would give them?
So some good advice, especially given the fact that I assume most of you are actors. I tend to look at films as houses. By the time I step into a project, there's real estate. There's a plot of land that we're going to develop. My job is a lot like architecture. I have to envision how the scenes, which are the rooms, serve a purpose and fit together, how the views from inside and outside correlate, what the experience is as you move through it. As you go through the process, you figure out that some rooms are nice, they don't need to be there, that some walls look unessential, but they're holding the roof up. So you as actors, when you get in the room and the house is already coming together, you're putting in the wiring, you need to take a look at the script, especially if you're going to act and write. You need to take a look at the script and ask yourself the question, am I the person who lives here? Am I the ghost that's haunting it? Am I here to be the nice portrait, or am I the quiet wall that holds the whole thing up? So keep that in mind always have an eye towards function, but keep the aesthetics in mind while you're moving forward.
And who pays the mortgage too? You gotta, right? You gotta.
Yeah, always be kind to the person who pays the mortgage. Always be kind and buy your workers
Man, that one
lunch.
just fit nicely. Anyway, couldn't wait for that one.
You got to write that down. That was nice.
Wasn't that
Yeah,
nice?
Yeah. So I want to tag onto the writing a little bit, but also obviously directing.
No, I was just going to say the last thing is, for those of you who want to do projects, there's you and there's your project, and then there's doubt. And that's it, I still doubt myself. I don't know if I can direct. I really don't. Every day I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Can I do it again? Am I going to get better at it? Is this going to turn into something? But if there's a passion and you just keep doing it, it's like chipping away at that doubt. It's like it shows up. It's like, so what? George Clooney has it. Cameron, they all have their moments of doubt. So we're not really any different. So I just keep chipping at it. And that's the only thing you can do is just keep doing it, keep chipping away at the doubt, and eventually it'll be a nice Michelangelo thing, right? Oh.
You'll have a nice little short film at the end of it.
Exactly.
I think that's a perfect place to end. Let's give him a hand and say thank you for coming out.
And thank you
Yeah,
for having us.
absolutely. Thanks, guys, for coming. Surveys on the table. They'll be around to say hi, and if you have any follow-up questions, thanks for coming out this afternoon.